Alright, so in this video I'm going to be discussing my overall thoughts on the final shape. I'll be going over the Legend campaign, the Pale Heart as a new destination, as well as the Pathfinder objectives, weapons, loot, the raid, and some of my complaints, because there are, although few, there are still a few complaints that I have with the game that I was kind of hoping would be resolved with the final shape, and they have yet to be resolved. But I'll discuss all that over some of the gameplay, but I wanted to give you some context for the gameplay in the background with this quick build overview. I know a lot of you that are subscribed to my channel are mostly subscribed because I do a lot of build crafting videos, and some of you have been asking for my input on Prismatic Titan. And while I can say that I haven't fully delved into the Prismatic subclass, I have been using this build specifically to farm the Pale Heart, which I've been doing a lot of. So I did the whole Legend campaign solo, and I primarily just use Strand Titan because it's a meta build and it's very easy to go into any content blind, with just a general good loadout. And obviously you don't have very much unlocked with Prismatic at the start of the campaign. So I basically only swapped over to Prismatic as needed. I think I did the Witness, Iconoclasm, the final boss. I did that with basically a Striker version on Prismatic with Curse of the Falling Star. And then when I was done with the campaign, and when I finished getting most of the fragments that I wanted, that I needed to basically make a build, I think I'm just missing one fragment, then I came up with this build, which was just very fun, very fast, efficient way to play the Pale Heart. Farming overthrows, doing all the mini games, basically anything in the Pale Heart that's not like Legend campaign or expert difficulty co-op missions or the raid. Obviously, this is just for exploration, farming overthrows, easy to medium difficulty content, and solo especially. So as you can see here, I'm on Insurmountable Skullfort, and I've actually, this is actually a good build on Striker as well. But I will say that after unlocking Prismatic, and even though a lot of the Prismatic kit for Titan seems a little bit underwhelming at first, here's one insight that I can offer. If you like Striker, if you like Arc Titan, then you may as well just stop playing Arc Titan and play Prismatic Arc Titan. What I mean by that is you can literally just use all of the Arc abilities that you have on Striker: Thruster, Thunderclap, Pulse Grenade, basically all the best abilities that Striker has. Mind you, we don't have Touch of Thunder Pulse Grenades to get all those Ionic Traces and a little bit of extended damage. But I found that, it's really not that necessary, because you still have Spark of Shock, right? Right here, Faucet of Dominance, so your Arc Grenades Jolt, and you have Facet of Protection, so you get damage resistance while surrounded. So these are two fragments that I use on Striker anyway. Mind you, they'd be called Spark of Resistance and Spark of Shock instead of Protection and Dominance, but basically, exactly the same thing. And then I would use Spark of Magnitude on Strikers for, a couple extra pulses on those Pulse Grenades. And then the fourth fragment, I think, is usually a toss-up. But look, you got 3 fragments here from Prismatic that are totally unique to Prismatic, that just offer you so much more than you can get on Striker. Okay, so you got Facet of Courage, which increases your damage of your Pulse Grenades. So this basically makes up for not having Touch of Thunder Pulse Grenades. It also makes up for not having Spark of Magnitude for the extra duration, because this is, I think it's a 10 or 15% buff on your light abilities, right? So as long as I can apply a Darkness debuff to an enemy, which is extremely easy to do, then I can get extra damage on my grenade and my Thunderclap, right? So that, that's part of the reason here why I'm using Facet of Solitude. Facet of Solitude is basically Thread of Isolation from Strand Titan, which is one of my favorite fragments. You land precision hits with any weapon. You sever the enemy. Now you've got essentially 40% damage resistance, right? because you've reduced that enemy's output by 40%. So it's very good for survival. And additionally, you're applying that darkness debuff, right? So anytime I want to throw a pulse grenade, ideally I'm throwing it at a chunky target, and all I got to do is shoot the enemy in the head a couple of times until you see that severing blast, or they're kind of glowing green, and then you throw your grenade and it's doing more damage. On top of that, you can get radiant, right? So 25% extra damage is not something that you can just get on Striker, right? You don't have Echo of Undermine, you don't have Weaken, you don't have any sources of Weaken, you don't have any sources of weapon damage on Striker. But on Prismatic, you have access to both, right? So, I mean, 25%, like, you're taking the best part of the Solar subclass and throwing it into the Arc subclass. So, in my mind, there's like almost no reason at all to run Striker now, which is a little bit unfortunate, but at the same time, you know, this is a brand new subclass, so why not just have fun with it and you know, enjoy it while it's good. So this is, you know, one of the ways that I'm building into Prismatic Titan, and it's, you know, you could say it's not super interesting because it's literally just Striker, but you know, this is just what I'm having fun with, and it's very effective. We also have Knockout, which is also on Striker, and Knockout got buffed, so I think now you do extra melee damage. I think you I'm not sure how much of a buff it is, but you do a pretty good amount of damage. And instead of getting health regen that you know, restores your health slowly, which can also get interrupted by enemy fire, that's how it worked before the final shape. Now Knockout just kind of works like Cure, like you get a chunk of healing on every single kill, so it's actually better, right? And it's very easy to get amplified with Knockout, as well as just getting arc kills in general. And then Diamond Lance is, so you start the campaign, you start with the Prismatic kit with Knockout and Diamond Lance. So this is actually pretty good. And I'm sure most of you on Titan probably have a Skull Fort, so you can, you know, you could pretty much throw this build together right from the start, because you have Dawn, you have Protection, and I think you have Courage. So you might be missing a couple fragments, but it's really not like a game breaker. Like, you could essentially play this build from the start. But Diamond Lance is, even though we've got all these other options, I like Diamond Lance because it is a darkness debuff that is available to you basically all the time. Like, any single kill where you're debuffing an enemy through Knockout, anything, you're just producing Diamond Lances left and right. All you got to do is throw it at the enemy. It's like having a shackle grenade and a darkness debuff, right? So that way you can get more ability damage, and you're doing crowd control, which is really good for survival, because on a Skullfort build where I'm just, you know, ideally getting up into the thick of things and thunderclapping everything over and over again, having the option to throw a lance and freeze things around you is, you know, it's going to allow you to survive longer, but it's also going to make the target stay still, which makes it easy to thunderclap them, because one of the things with thunderclap is, depending on the length of the animation that you engage with, like if you're going to do a long charge, then the target may move out of the way, right? Even a short charge, the targets could move out of the way. So being able to freeze targets and then thunderclap them is actually pretty synergistic. So I'd recommend that. And I think, by the way, I think you start with Whisper of, or Facet of Ruin, so that you get increased shatter damage, right? So even if you don't have like Solitude or Dominance, well, then just use Ruin. Like, you could basically replace Ruin with Dominance for the extra shatter damage to replace that jolt from your arc grenades. So that's pretty good, right? So that's the aspects and fragments that I'm using on this build. And then for the weapons, we've got the Call, which is just amazing. Like, I picked up this Call pretty early in the game with Demo and Desperate Measures, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sounds good. It's got Demo, it's got a damage buff, let's go see how it is. It's a rocket sidearm, like Indebted Kindness. It's amazing. You know, I mean, this thing would be good without any perks at all, right? It's just that good. And the fact that it's Strand, you know, that allows you to build up your Transcendence a little quicker. And then I also, eventually I just crafted it and I just decided to put the exact same perks on it with basically max velocity, so I can make it as hit scan as possible. But yeah, it's a good combo. Desperate Measures stacks up very easily, especially as you're spamming your melee and your grenades, right? It's like, in my opinion, it's just better than Golden Tricorn, even though technically you can get more damage out of Golden Tricorn. You have to match your abilities and your weapons and all that kind of stuff. With Desperate Measures, you don't. You just get kills with the weapon and or get kills with any abilities, and then all of a sudden you've got Desperate Measures times 1, times 2, times 3, up to 30% extra damage. So that's pretty nice, and you're getting more grenades, and I want more grenades because I've got pulse grenades, right? Another thing that I forgot to mention with Prismatic over Striker, right? You've literally got an extra super. So if you think you could spam more pulse grenades on Striker, which you probably could because you're getting longer lasting grenades that give you ionic traces, so it kind of allows you to build up armor charge very quick and throw a lot of grenades back to back almost, depending on what you're throwing your grenades at. Well, who cares if you can't do it as efficiently on Prismatic, because you've got Transcendence, which gives you the ability to throw like 3 grenades in a minute. And not only are those grenades essentially jolting pulse grenades, but they're also suspending grenades. So you're suspending everything, jolting everything. So I mean, the availability of those grenades, what are they even called? Electrified snare, right? Having the electrified snare available to you on top of your pulse grenades just totally makes up for the lack of Touch of Thunder pulse grenades, right? So just a little side note there that I forgot to mention. So then Red Death is, I wasn't even using it. Obviously, you unlock it very early in the game, and I think Bungie did this intentionally because, especially on Prismatic, there's not necessarily as much access to healing as some of the core subclasses that give you like Restoration and Constant Woven Mail, Banner of War, that kind of stuff. Well, you can get through the campaign with Red Death, right? I mean, this is your healing source. It's also an exotic primary, so you can produce more heavy ammo, you can build up your super faster, stuff like that. So even though I was doing most of the campaign on Strand Titan with Sunshot, whenever I had to switch to Prismatic, I pretty much just replaced Sunshot with Red Death. That way you have some intrinsic healing with your build. So very good pulse rifle on top of the major pulse rifle buff. I pretty much use this all the time on Prismatic, and I still am. And still, we're only a couple weeks into the game, but this is just like a guaranteed source of survivability that you can't really beat. You don't have to think about your build so much if you're just using Red Death, right? And that's kind of the concept with Prismatic, especially as you go through the campaign. You don't have time to build craft, you don't have the resources to build craft properly, so you rely on your weapons, right? Damage, healing, etc. Now for the Pale Heart stuff, obviously I'm going to use a Eager Edge Sword just to get around the map quicker, so you can loot those chests faster. And having Cold Steel on here is also another source of a darkness debuff, right? So I can, especially on chunky targets, I can go and do a heavy attack or a light attack, slow them, freeze them, and then throw my abilities at them, and they're doing 10% more damage. So that's just nice all around. So that's pretty much it for the build that I've been playing on mostly without experimenting with other things. Like I literally just unlocked the class item this morning, so I'll start farming those and experimenting with other builds. I am looking forward to it, but I've been having fun with Skullfort. Another thing with Skullfort is, especially solo, right? And so like I did the campaign solo, you can farm the Pale Heart solo. Like the whole Pale Heart destination is kind of geared towards solo gameplay. And that's good for an insurmountable Skullfort, because if you're in a fire team, then you're heavily punished using Skullfort, because teammates are going to take your kills before you even wind up your Thunderclap to kill the enemy, which means you're going to be wasting your Thunderclap. And obviously you need to constantly get kills with Thunderclap to get that refund. If you can't get that refund, then you're screwed, right? You've lost your gameplay loop of your build. And also, like, if you're on medium to easy content, then you can almost guarantee that you're going to get those kills with the Thunderclap, which is important, right? You don't want to waste your Thunderclap on heavier targets that you are not going to kill. If you're going to do that, you need to weaken those targets first and then try and kill them so you can get your Thunderclap back, right? So with that said, though, a lot of the mods that I'm using here are built into allowing me to get my Thunderclap back if I do mess it up, right? If I miss an enemy or if I don't kill an enemy, well, I lose it. Well, I can use my armor charge to get my Thunderclap back, right? And it almost restores your Thunderclap completely as long as you have 4 stacks of armor charge, which I'm getting very easily through charged up and stacks on stacks. So this is just, you know, a simple 4 stack armor charge kickstart setup basically. And if you're going to use a kickstart, right, so I'm using grenade kickstart. Obviously you don't want to use melee kickstart because ideally you're going to be getting your Thunderclap back, right? If you're going to use your armor charge for your Thunderclap, then you're just kind of wasting armor charge. So in my opinion, it's better to use a grenade kickstart mod so you could spam more pulse grenades. And then if you do lose your Thunderclap, right, if you lose your Thunderclap, it's an accident. You screwed up. So what you need to do then is you just save your armor charge for your finisher, right? That way you can get your Thunderclap back. So pretty simple siphon mods here, and then hands-on is just kind of nice to get your Thunder Crash back a little bit faster, and then Innervation for more grenade energy, and Reaper for more, with Thruster Dodge, you get that back pretty fast. So you can produce a lot of orbs, a little bit of extra healing from recuperation. So, and don't forget Powerful Attraction. Obviously, as long as you're spamming Thruster, then you're going to be scooping up orbs all the time. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. So next I'll go into my thoughts on the final shape over the top of some gameplay. All right, so as far as the final shape goes, if I had to give it a score out of 10, it would easily be above 9, pretty close to 10. Definitely my favorite Destiny experience of all time. And I say that like having played Destiny since Destiny 1. I did take a long break from the franchise after, I can't remember which expansion it was with Destiny 1. I didn't feel like the value was very worth it. I wasn't in a position with my life to really be raiding or grouping up with enemies. There was no like LFGs or anything like that. I had 2 young kids, a family, a career, and stuff like that. So I was like, I just wanted to play Destiny for the experience, but I obviously I wasn't able to raid or commit to that level of gameplay with other Fireteam members, right? But yeah, I loved Destiny 1. I've been watching Datto since months before Destiny even came out. Whenever Datto started making videos about Destiny before it was even released, that's how long that I've been engaged with the game. And so like I said, I did take a break after Destiny 1. And I got back into Destiny 2 when the Witch Queen released, because I saw that a lot of the, I think I tried Destiny 2 when it first came out. I think it was there was a free-to-play kind of a demo thing on PlayStation that I tried. I was like, okay, whatever. But the game didn't have very good reviews, and so I just didn't really. I had other games that I wanted to play. I just couldn't get back into it. When I saw the all the hype about the Witch Queen, I was like, okay, well, and it's free to play now. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can try and get back into Destiny, see how it feels. And the free to play experience basically hooked me in, and now I own everything in the game, and I've put like 4,000 hours into the game in the last couple years. So it's a lot of hours. And yeah, this is definitely my favorite Destiny experience. And I started with the Witch Queen, which was already an amazing experience. The Witch Queen hooked me in to this game as much as it has. I don't even play any other games aside from casually. I play Fortnite with my family, but yeah, there's no other game that has taken me off Destiny in the last 2 years. So, and I could say the final shape is definitely the best experience. As far as the Legend campaign goes, I think that the Witch Queen was maybe a more cohesive experience, maybe a little bit more fluid. Not more fluid, but it just felt more thematic, right? And I think and not that that's a bad thing. I think that the Legend campaign in the final shape, kind of by virtue, has to include like all enemy races, everything, right? I mean, we're, some missions we're up against Taken, then we're up against Vex, then it's Fallen, then it's Cabal, then it's like, and every setting, right? Like we've got like the snowy mountains, we've got the Pale Heart, which is almost like the Blooming here, which is almost like Witch Queen or Throne World architecture. Like we've literally got like everything that Destiny has ever given us kind of combined into one expansion. And to me, there's a lot of risk in doing that, because then you lose that, you risk losing that cohesive experience. But somehow Bungie pulled it off to make it feel very fluid. And I think a lot of that was the way that the campaign went from mission to mission with like Crow and Cade and the campfires, and like after every mission you have a new checkpoint, which is basically at the next mission. It just felt like very easy to engage with the campaign without any downtime, which I really enjoyed. Because one of the things I hated about going, like, even though I said I started really only playing when Witch Queen came out, I've done all of the available campaigns in the game. Like I went back after doing the Witch Queen, and I played Beyond Light, I did Forsaken, I did all the campaigns, and they just felt really bad to me. Like Beyond Light, for example, like how many times do you have to like stop doing the campaign to go do some bull crap, like lost sectors, or go collect some items, or do these bounties, or like I don't like that type of flow in the campaign. But the final shape does it really well, where you're just kind of like going through it all in one single experience, with the exception of like doing the strike. But the strikes are always kind of core to the story anyways, so it kind of feels like it's a campaign mission anyways. So I like that. And then as far as like going into the campaign with a build, obviously I've already discussed Prismatic Titan. I think Bungie did it pretty well. Like as far as introducing a new subclass to the game, they did it much better than Lightfall, right? So with Lightfall, like you get to, and Stasis for that matter, you get to experience those subclasses like by dipping into those wells, right? You dip into the well, and all of a sudden you've got like infinite ability uptime, and you've got kind of a they give you kind of a starter pack of what you can use, right? There's no options, there's no build crafting. It's just like, oh, here's Stasis, here's Strand, and this is all we're going to give you, and you can do it as much as you want. Well, it's not really realistic to the gameplay experience, because there's no options, there's no build crafting, right? That's what build crafting is. It's assembling all the different options that you have to make your experience feel custom and tailored to your style, right? So I never really liked that. Like in fact I almost hated it. Like when I did Lightfall, when you have to go beat Callus, like they give you that Strand well that you can step into, obviously be the Strand subclass, but like why would I want to do that? I have a core build that I've already made that I can use. I don't want to use some like default crap Bungie's going to give me that is not unique to me at all. It's literally the same thing that everybody's using. So I didn't even use Strand when I first beat Callus in the Legend Lightfall campaign, right? So I think that Bungie did it pretty good in the final shape with how they introduced Prismatic. You get access to the subclass right away, right? It's not just like, oh, here's a little teaser of Prismatic. It's no, here's Prismatic, do what you want with it. Yeah, you don't have very many options, but you do have some options. And you can literally make a build, you can make a loadout, and you can save it. And so that's great. You can step into those Transcendent wells so that you can get your Transcendence up. So I just think that they did it a lot better than they did before. With that said, though, it is still a pretty rudimentary subclass at first, so I still found myself using my my core classes, and basically that was Strand Titan. Just because Strand Titan is really powerful. It's just powerful all around for survivability, for boss damage, for ad clear, for mobility. It's probably the best Titan core subclass. Actually, even probably still the best Titan subclass in the game. So I found myself mostly on Strand Titan using Swordbreaker, 1-2 punch, Synthos, Sunshot, and a machine gun, right? And that pretty much got me through the entire campaign, except for those sections where you needed to use Transcendence to break enemy shields, in which case I would just, I would just switch over to Prismatic and step in a well and then take care of those enemies, and then occasionally I'll switch back to Strand and not worry about the build craft and just do what the game wants you to do, because you got to get through it, right? You have to break those. You need to use Prismatic in certain situations. Right, so, and that might be a minor complaint, but it's definitely nothing close to like how subclass were introduced in Beyond Light and Lightfall. So yeah, cadence was very good. The introduction of the subclass was much better than previously. Also, look, I'm not a lore person, so I'm not going to be discussing lore at all. In fact, I'm just like, if you ask me to watch a movie, I'm probably gonna fall asleep half an hour into it. That's why I game, because I have to be doing stuff. I have to have a challenge in front of me. My hands need to be doing something. I need to be focused on a task. I'm not very good at sitting around listening to movies, especially anymore. As I'm in my 40s, I just can't stay awake. So I don't know anything about the lore in Destiny. I mean, I know a little bit from listening to other people, and occasionally I'll pick up things in the game, but usually that stuff just goes right over my head. So for me, what I love about the game is the ambiance, the art, the architecture, the vibe, right? Like I jive with all that stuff. And the final shape was absolutely stunning. Everything is beautiful. Like, as you can see here, I'm showing blooming gameplay. Like, this is a full unedited overthrow in the blooming that I did solo, and this is my favorite section of the Pale Heart. It's just gorgeous. Like, I could just play in here for hours and not get bored. So that's a huge bonus to me. Like, that does not exist in Lightfall. Like, I like Zephyr Concourse in Lightfall. It's all right, but it's still nothing close to this. Yeah, just totally awesome as far as the ambiance, the feels, the environment, the enemy types. The challenge is good, so that's what keeps me engaged with the game as opposed to the lore. But I like the concept of the story as well, like who we are as Guardians and what we're doing, and a lot of the story in this game actually got me emotional, right? Like I was I'm not very invested into the story, but I can still understand the emotions. Like, even when your ghost sacrifices himself, and Cade sacrifices himself. Like, to me, Bungie did a really good job in making you feel something, even if you don't understand it. So I think, Bungie just really knocked it out of the park as far as all that goes. Also the character development, right? So like kind of on a tangent to the lore, I don't know the characters very well either, but I do like a lot of the characters. Like I like Zavala, I like Zavala's backstory, and Crow and Cade was just a very interesting duo. Like I was just really, I was into both of their stories, and then following them along from campfire to campfire. Their voice actors really good. Like if you compare it to just Osiris and Nimbus and the Silver Surfers from Lightfall, this was just so much better. And then as far as like the big boss, we got the Witness. I've been pretty pessimistic about the Witness as a boss, without knowing the lore again, just like who he is. Like, okay, this is kind of a weird boss, like this tall unibrow dude with smoke coming out of his head, just kind of weird looking, and didn't really seem to fit the Destiny universe in the same way that like Savathun did or Callus. Like, they're both attached to enemy races, whereas like the Witness is just kind of a amalgamation of all races. Doesn't really, he's just totally different. So I was a little bit pessimistic about the Witness at first, but yeah, it's still pretty good. And as then taking that to the boss fight up against the Witness, I think it was very well done. Uh, the arena was gorgeous, and I liked the mechanics in the fight. Comparing that to like Savathûn in the Witch Queen and Callus and Lightfall, I think I actually enjoyed Callus the most out of those final boss fights. Even though Lightfall was like, the worst campaign, I still really enjoyed Desperate Measures and the Callus boss fight. Mainly because you defeat Callus in the end, whereas the Witness is just kind of like, it wasn't really like you beat it. It's just kind of like, okay, you took his shield off. Now you got to go do the raid, and now you got to do Excision. So it was just kind of weird the way that you defeat the Witness compared to Callus and Savathûn, which was just much more literal. And so yeah, so as far as the Pale Heart goes, best destination ever. Like I've already gone on about, I can play in here for hours and not be bored. I think because they tried to make this more of like a solo experience, right? And I don't think you can have 6 players in the Pale Heart at once. I think you can only have up to 3, which I like because I'm mostly a solo player in this game anyways. And if I'm going to do exploration, farm bounties or XP or do missions or whatever, I don't want other random blueberries running around, stealing my kills and stuff. So I like the fact that I can kind of go in here and just, test my build crafting, take care of objectives, and it just feels way more engaging than some of the other destinations. And then we've got Overthrow as a public activity, right? And keep in mind here, there is no... Well, I guess that this is like a spin-off from Neomuna with Terminal Overload, right? Which is the one thing from Neomuna that I actually really liked. I actually really liked Terminal Overload. And I even like how it switches... It switches from section to section, right? So like one day you'll have Liming Harbor, then you'll have Zephyr Concourse, then you'll have whatever the other place is. I don't like the other 2 places. I do like Zephyr Concourse. So that the one downside to Terminal Overload was that, it depends what day it is, right? If it's on Zephyr Concourse, then yeah, I'll go in there and have some fun. But if it's not there, then I can't really do Terminal Overload that day and enjoy it in the same way. But what they did with Overthrow was they actually made it so that you can do Overthrow in any section of the Pale Heart, right? The difference is you can queue into, like, there is a daily rotation, but the daily rotation is just kind of more fire team based. So you can queue into basically a match-made Overthrow. And have some help to get it done quicker, right? So it just means that Overthrow is slightly more farmable in the daily rotating areas as opposed to the other 2 areas. But nonetheless, you can still go do Overthrow anywhere you want at any time, and you can still farm it very effectively, right? And if you prefer playing solo, then it makes no difference anyways. Just go do Overthrow wherever, right? You're still going to get the same stuff. It doesn't really matter. And they really nailed it out of the park with Overthrow. Like, I think it's much better than Terminal Overload. There's much more variety. I think there's more RNG, right? Like, you get random spots where you get to go fight, defeating random enemies. There's like all kinds of mini games mixed in on top of like searching for loot chests, and you got these the corrupted chests that you can do at the same time. Like, there's just so much to do, and there's so much variety. It just keeps you engaged for a long time. And so the fact that it's not predictable, just to me, is Bungie nailed it out of the park. 10 out of 10 for Overthrow and the destination, and all the side things that you can do, like the Syst missions. I think there's like 6 Syst missions, and they're very short, but they're very fun. Like, and actually a couple of missions from the Wild Hunt exotic quest kind of felt like Syst missions as well, which were really good, where you like shoot the shanks out of the sky and the screebs. It's just short little quests like that I really like. And the cysts, I think if you do one weekly cyst, you get a pinnacle. You've also got excision. So, like, Bungie just gave you they gave you so much to do for so many different types of players. So not only can you go and like solo explore the Pale Heart for hours and enjoy yourself, well, then you can hop into Excision, which is a 12-man activity with all of all of your favorite heroes in Destiny, and defeat the Witness. So like you could do solo, you can do 12-man, you could do 6-man raid, you could do 3-man Nightfalls, you could do co-op, you can do the exotic mission, duality. Like, they literally gave us everything for everybody, which I think is a huge factor into why the game is succeeding so much right now. Also the fragments, right? So we've got prismatic, and I'm not going to talk a whole lot about prismatic because I already went over the the prismatic build that I'm using here, and I haven't experimented much with Warlock or Hunter yet, so I don't really want to talk too much about prismatic. But overall, as a subclass, I think it's better than I expected, probably. And it's definitely fun. It's new. It's got all kinds of different, so much more variety than any of the other core subclasses, which makes it very. I think it's gonna make the game very replayable for longer periods of time. Right? It's gonna keep people from getting bored. But the fragments, right? So on the note of introducing the subclass like prismatic, which I've already talked about, we've got post-campaign you can go and unlock fragments, and actually you can unlock a few during the campaign if you can find those little secret prismatic chests in some of the campaign missions, if you're lucky enough to find those. But post-campaign you get all these fragment mini quests to do right through I think it's the Alone in the Dark. You speak to Micah 10, she kind of gets the ball rolling on some of these little mini quests that you go do, and then you end up unlocking fragments through these quests. And so that was so much more engaging. Like, there's literally a unique mission with bosses and enemies to do for every single fragment. Compare that to Lightfall, which is, I think, is part of the reason it was so poorly received. Is you got to go. Nobody liked Strand V-Bucks, not V-Bucks. Sorry, the fish bucks, right? So you finally unlock Strand at the end of the campaign as opposed to the beginning of the campaign, and then you got to go farm hours of terminal overload and Neomuna, dark dank place, just collecting random Strand bucks off the ground to go and buy the fragments. That is so uninspiring compared to the final shape, where you actually have something to do, something to fight, something unique in every single case, and then you get this one unique fragment from a pink glowing chest at the end. So that was awesome. In fact, I almost wish that you had to do it on each character so I can go back in and do those missions again, because it was that fun. So yeah, they really did a good job on that, as far as the subclass and like post-campaign unlocking everything. Then we've got Pathfinder. Okay, so this is one thing that I was pretty excited for, because I hate bounties. Like, I do not bounty prep for anything. Like, the only time I ever do bounties is if like occasionally if I'm in the tower, yeah, I'll go see Banshee and I'll pick up the bounties. I won't even look at what the bounties are, pay attention to them. It's just I pick them up because oftentimes I will passively get them done, and then to me that's just a bonus, right? It's just, free enhancement corpse. So yeah, I'll pick up Banshee bounties just for that. Or a certain activity, like if I'm doing, if I decide that I wanted to go do terminal overload for a couple hours, right, and just like farm circular logics, or experiment with build crafting on higher difficulty enemies, well then yeah, I'll go see Nimbus and pick up some Neomuna bounties, because why not, right? Especially if I'm like trying to get XP, which we haven't really had to do in over a year. But yeah, so just bounties to me are just boring. I don't like engaging with them. Like, you gotta leave the destination you're in to go and see a vendor on a different planet to pick up a bounty. You have to buy the bounty. Like, you have to buy access to the bounty just to complete the bounty. I don't know, it's just like a whole lot of running around for it's uninteresting. So the Pathfinder system is so much better, and I like engaging with it. It's a cool system, you know, kind of like a constellation setup with where you got to link your different objectives, and it's almost like exactly how the way that I have engaged with bounties. That's what Pathfinder is, right? I never engaged with bounties before unless I had to, or unless it was convenient and I didn't pay attention to them when I did get them. Well, with Pathfinder, it's basically that, but it's automatic. You don't ever have to go to a vendor. You don't have to buy the bounty. You don't have to pay attention to the bounty. Just go and do stuff in a destination. Check your Pathfinder every now and then. It's like, oh, I've completed all these objectives. Now I can get a prime or a powerful engram. I get a free sword. I can reset it, and you can literally get like a couple good level ups and a couple good exotic swords from doing Pathfinders just intuitively, automatically, without even really paying attention. So yeah, Pathfinder system is very good, and I'm glad that they have a Pathfinder system in the Pale Heart, because at first when I saw the Pathfinder system, it was for the ritual activities, and I was like, oh well, you know, who cares? Like, you're gonna make me go play Gambit? Forget it. So unfortunately, if you're just into free to play and doing ritual activities, the Pathfinder system is not that good unless you really want to go and do unless you want to go do Gambit and Crucible, right? Or if you don't like Vanguard, then you got to go do Vanguard. So that's the one downside to Pathfinder for rituals. But I hope they put this Pathfinder system into all the other destinations and get rid of all of those bounties, because this is just way better. Then we've got like all these new weapons and loot, which I can go into. You know, I can make a total separate video on the different weapons, the god rolls, but they really nailed it out of the park again with, like, I mean, your first introduction to one of the newest weapons that you get at the start is the Call, right? Which can basically carry you through the entire campaign. You've got a few new archetypes, like you've got the new archetype machine gun, you've got the healing auto rifle, which is very cool. And then Bungie really threw a wrench into the meta with these exotics, these RNG exotics, right? Which there's a downside to that I'll cover, but yeah, it's super cool. You can actually farm exotics. Like, you have, what, 121 different possibilities for Ergo Sum for a single sword. That's nuts. So, I mean, so that's just another motive to go and farm this very engaging destination of the Pale Heart. Is you have 121 options for the sword that you can get from there. And then you've got the class item, which you've got 64 different possible rolls on every single class, which once you've done Dual Destiny, the exotic quest, then you can farm the class items just by, again, engaging with the Pale Heart, like just by opening chests, doing overthrow, and that kind of stuff. So that's super cool to me. Then they give us a couple exotics off the top of my head. Well, you've got Microcosm, which I can't really talk on because I don't have it yet, but it's a kinetic heavy weapon that's a trace rifle. I mean, that's cool, that's interesting. We've got Wild Hunt. I mean, Wild Hunt is absolutely nuts. It's amazing. And the fact that it's doing more damage than heavy weapons, than heavy precision-based weapons, it's literally better than linear fusion rifles, and it's a special weapon. So there might be some downsides to this, and it might get changed in the future. Like, it's obviously power creep, but it's interesting, it's engaging, it's fun. I really like that they did that. And same thing goes for like the raid exotic, the Strand Fusion. It's literally better. It's a special weapon, and it's better than all of the heavy linear fusions. I mean, that's nuts, and it's completely unique. It synergizes with like Broodweaver. It synergizes with Hatchling builds, with Apotheosis Veil, whereas like Still Hunt synergizes with Celestial Nighthawk. Yeah, so I really like what they did. I really like what they did with the entire weapons and loot system, like the class item, and all the different weapons. Very good. The seasonal artifact. So I'm trying not to touch too much on the seasons here, but obviously we've got the seasonal artifact, and you know, it's going to be part of our gameplay whether we're playing the season or not, right? It's part of the game. And I like the fact that Bungie gave us variety, right? So last season, Season of the Wish, was just so stale to me with the seasonal artifact, because Literally, all you ever heard all season long was Polaris Lance, Dragon's Breath. If you're not on a solar subclass, what are you doing, kind of a thing. You know, maybe a touch of Stasis and a touch of Strand here and there, but yeah, it's just basically you got to play solar, or you know, you're throwing, and I don't like that. So this season, or at least for this act, Bungie has given us the option to basically play however we want to play, and there's something in the seasonal artifact for every style of gameplay, and I think that's great. I hope that the seasonal artifacts are always going to be like that, because I'm the type of player that likes to switch stuff up. You know, I'll play a few days on one subclass, and then I'll switch to another build. Right? I get really bored otherwise. So yeah, thumbs up on that. Then I could talk about the raid as well. I did clear my raid on LFG, and the Verity encounter was definitely it took the longest amount of time, and that's with guides being out there. So like, yeah, I mean, I can't believe all of the day one raiders that had the patience to do that. That was absolutely insane to me. But yeah, the raid was nuts. It was probably the best raid I've ever done. I like the fact that there was a lot of like ad clear encounters, like the first encounter, the third encounter, then you got the puzzle encounter with Verity. Yeah, there's only a couple boss fights, but I just thought it was a really good blend of different types of encounters. So without spoiling much on the raid, I think it's probably my favorite raid, as you, like previous to Salvations. I would say 100% Crota's End. In fact, it's the only raid title that I have as an LFGer. And yeah, this was, yeah, I mean, you got to go experience the raid. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, and then as far as my complaints go, I don't really have very many complaints other than some of the stuff that's already been in the game for a while. So vault space. Yeah, we got 100 extra slots of vault space, but we still got this really primitive leveling system where you gotta save every single weapon that you get because it's a higher level, and then you gotta basically hold it in your vault so that you can upgrade your other weapons with upgrade modules. So you would need like 1,000 upgrade modules, and then you would need like at least triple the amount of vault space to actually level efficiently in this game. Instead, Bungie is still tied to this leveling system where you got to use upgrade modules and you got to store garbage in your vault. So yeah, hopefully we can get some improvements to the leveling system at some point. But yeah, that's still, like, the fact that we haven't had to level in a year and a half, like I did my, because when Lightfall came out, obviously we only had to power level the first season, and then after that there was no more leveling, right? So after like a year and a half of playing the game without having to level and then going back to this, felt really bad. Like, I do not want to stop playing the game to go check my postmaster, my vault, to figure out what I'm going to delete, what I'm going to upgrade. Like, that's not playing the game to me. So I do not enjoy that. And then I do find it a little weird. This is like not really a complaint, but it is to me. Like, why don't we have prismatic class names? Like, we have Strand's got Berserker, Broodweaver, Threadrunner. Why is everything just Prismatic Titan, Prismatic Hunter, Prismatic Warlock? I don't know. It seems like, why didn't they give us some unique prismatic names? Seems a little weird to me, but it's pretty trivial, I guess. And then the other thing is we've got some extreme meta shifts, which I think could potentially cause some problems. Like I said, with the Still Hunt and the raid exotic. Are special weapons literally better than heavy weapons now? Or heavy weapons only good for ad clear, like machine guns? So I don't know. I have a little bit of concern with the extreme power creep with some of these meta shifts, but knowing Bungie, they'll probably work to balance things out and change things up. So I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, that's basically it for my thoughts on the final shape. I know it's a long one. I'll try and put some timestamps in there, but obviously if you've gotten to this point, it doesn't really matter. You've heard me out. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll get back to making some more regular content hopefully here soon. This month is pretty busy for me IRL, So there might not be a whole lot. But yeah, I'm going to keep enjoying the game, and you know, I'm looking forward to getting some more content to you guys. So thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.